Hey everybody. I just want to take a minute or two and just kind of share an encouraging word with you guys, and also just share a little bit about how we were called to Northern Ireland. And a lot of people just kind of ask the simple question like, why Northern Ireland? And it reminds me of like people like Abraham. I'm sure they would have been like, why the land of the Canaanites? Why would you sit here and leave Abraham, like Abram, I'm sorry, your family and what you know, and pick up and move to a foreign land? And this is what I want to encourage you guys with. When you hear the Lord's voice, it changes everything. Not only that, when you say yes to what the Lord is saying, your life will be completely, radically changed forever. There's a song by Lindy Conant, and there's a line in one of her songs, and it just says this. It says, "Simple obedience changes history." Tana and I, years ago, we just kind of decided in our hearts as we were following Jesus, like, God, we don't want to live a mundane, like, Christian, influenced by American ism or religiosity. We don't want any of those things in our lives anymore. We want to live completely abandoned. And again, we're not perfect in that, but we just made this commitment to the Lord, and we said, God, we'll say yes to whatever it is that you said. And we've all heard that it's really dangerous to pray certain prayers. Well, I can tell you that's a dangerous prayer to pray, because the Lord knows that if you are like clay in his hands, he will mold you, and he will send you, and he will throw you, and he will catapult you, and he will use you for his glory. But I can tell you this, when you say yes to the Lord, it's the best thing, it's the best yes that you can ever have. And it makes all the other... it makes everything else no. Even those things that you've said yes to in the past that you thought were great, it makes all of those things really pair in comparison to the yes of saying, God, I'm going to do whatever it is that you want me to do. And I'm going to say yes to the worth and the beauty of Jesus. And I'm going to set my eyes and my gaze and my attention upon him. And so I just want to encourage you guys real quick. Our call was not unlike a lot of others, but the Lord just really began to speak to us. We were in Northern Ireland on a trip leading a group of Americans. We loved our life. We loved what God was doing in Avon, Indiana, serving with this organization that worked with sex trafficking victims, serving at a church on the west side of Indy, and just loving life. Like, we were really in the groove of what God was doing. But sometimes Jesus throws curveballs at us. But if you're listening to his voice and you're tuned in, it doesn't matter if he throws you a curveball, because you're gonna catch it and then affirm it and then just run with it. Go with the new marching orders. And so that's what Jesus did. And so we were in Northern Ireland, and in a moment he just kind of dropped a word on us as we were praying and saying, God, what do you have for us? He said, I want you to ask for the nations. And so simply, it came through Tana, and Tana just said, okay, God, I'll start asking for the nations. And she starts listing off these nations, and Jesus is like, no, I want you to ask for the nations. And, that might sound weird and selfish or prideful or something, but man, when you look at Psalm chapter 2, verse 8, it says, ask me for the nations, and I'll give them to you as your inheritance. The ends of the earth is your possession. And that was immediately like this prophetic call to like the Father inviting the Son to ask him for the reign and rule of all the nations. And of course, Jesus does. But then he sends us, you and me, to the nations to begin to claim those as his inheritance. And we get to partake in that. It's crazy. And so what God began doing was began to marry the dreams and the desires of Tana's heart and our heart. And he began to intertwine those with his heart. And there's a psalm that says, delight yourself in the Lord and he will give you the desires of your heart. Maybe it's a proverb. I don't remember. But when our delight is in him and his delight is in us, then all of a sudden our desires become his desires, and he can just say, I'm going to marry those. And so you're going to enjoy me. Your strength's going to be found in joy, in my joy, and our alignment, our heart alignment and our life alignment is going to start to become one. It's a part of the way in which Jesus actually makes us one with him, is by aligning our identities and our destinies. And so Jesus said, I want you to ask me for the nations. And so, Tana just said, I want to ask for Northern Ireland. God, I love this place. Like, it feels like home. And really, that was just the beginning of the end, because God just began to affirm and confirm that. We, a few days later, while we were in Northern Ireland, we went to a church that we weren't supposed to go to. And the pastor gets up and he reads Psalm chapter 2, he sings Psalm chapter 2, and then he preaches out of Psalm chapter 2. And we're just like going, Jesus, what's going on? And then we pull away and go, okay, God, if you're actually asking us to go to the nations, we need to throw out a fleece. We need more confirmation than this. Because we began to feel the stirring, like this is the very thing that God's called us to. So we said, God, if this is what you're calling us to, we want to be asked back to come to this place. And not just like, oh, it was great having you, blah, 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 but we wanted specific asks back. No sooner than we prayed that prayer, 2 hours later, our hosts and now our friends, Jen Shilliday, came up to Tana and just said, you need to bring your kids back. Even if it's not with Christ in Youth, you guys need to come and just spend time with us. The next morning, as Richie, Jen's husband and friend, as he was dropping us off at the airport, he pulled me aside and he asked me the exact same thing, and he pulled Tana aside. We had this confirmation of these 3 asks to say, and God just confirmed it. It was beautiful. But not only that, now we get back to the United States, and all of a sudden, the Lord sicks our moms on us. So our moms had been praying for us, which is amazing. But Tana's mom comes to us 2 days after we got back and said, hey, I want to hear about the trip, but I've got to ask you, I was praying for you guys while you were gone. Did you get a sense that God was calling you back to that nation? And then my mom starts drilling Tana with questions, and finally Tana just says to my mom, what are you getting at? And my mom says, I was praying for you guys while you were gone, and I felt like perhaps the Lord was calling your heart back to missions. Oh my gosh. The Lord called us. And guys, there's dreams that Tana's had, and words that have been spoken over our life, and other things that just kind of fit all into this, that God was just forming within us. And we're not even there yet, but we're getting close. But this is what I want to encourage you with, is that God is speaking. And if there's a dream in your heart or a desire of your heart, and if you are pursuing Jesus, with everything that you have, and that dream is laying dormant, I want to encourage you to ask the Lord to release the desires of your heart to align with His. And sometimes He might use those dreams and those desires to actually get you in alignment with His dreams and desires for your life and your destiny. And other times, those might be right on. But I just want to encourage you, pray, seek the Lord's heart. You might be exactly where God wants you to be, and that's awesome. Keep pressing in. But guys, the Lord is speaking, and He's jealous for us to hear Him, because He knows that as we listen to Him, He will first and foremost shape us more and more into the likeness of His Son Jesus. But then He'll actually then catapult us into our destiny, which is honestly, it's just releasing more worship and more glory and honor to Him. And I'm excited to embark on this journey. So be blessed. A little bit more of the calling and story. If you'd like to hear more, send us a message. Let us know. But our plan and our goal is still to launch by the end of the year. We're praying to be fully funded in less than a month. So if you guys want to partner with us and what God's doing, please get a hold of us. We'd love to connect you, to what God is doing in the nations. God bless you guys, and we'll talk to you soon.